Applied Magic by Dion Fortune. Narrated by Matthew Schmitz. (8) Black Magic. Black magic is not a thing that any normal person would study or pursue for its own sake, but it is hardly possible and hardly advisable to study the technical methods of occultism without giving consideration to the pathologies to which they are liable. Such popular attention as occultism receives is for the most part confined to its black aspect. Revelations of this aspect can always command the kind of attention that is given to a street accident. Anyone who has any knowledge of occultism, however, is always struck by the fact that the would-be exposers never get their fingers on the real evil. They sense the evil, just as animals sense an abattoir, but they have no realization of the significance of the facts they record, nor any understanding of why the people concerned are doing such things. The technique of black magic differs in no way from that of white magic. The same principles apply. The same methods are made use of. The same training and concentration is necessary. The difference lies in the attitude of the operator, the symbolism employed, and the powers contacted thereby, just as the same musical education is necessary to the conductor of a symphony orchestra or a jazz band. And even when we say that certain symbols and powers belong to the domain of black magic, we must make reservations, for these symbols may be used, and these powers evoked quite legitimately, just as dangerous risks are taken by surgeons upon occasion. One can safely say, however, that should any of these magical methods be exhibited to an audience, they can be unhesitatingly classified as black, because they cannot fail to arouse the baser instincts of the spectators, who are there for no useful purpose. There are also certain techniques of sex and blood magic, which, though they may be harmless enough among primitive peoples, they are certainly out of balance among civilized ones, and are only resorted to for the sake of a debased sensationalism. To these we must add the deliberate evocation of evil. This is usually only performed for purposes of revenge. But there are certain types of persons with a natural streak of cruelty in their natures. These readily take to the evocation of evil for vengeful purposes, and having had experience of the results of this operation, develop a liking for it for its own sake, and become cruelty addicts for the sake of the thrill it gives. Unless we recognize this peculiar trait in human nature, which is much commoner than is generally realized, and is distinguished by psychologists by the name of sadism, we shall never understand certain aspects of black magic, for it is in sadism that the key to these is to be sought. The invocation of certain primitive types of natural forces, though not intrinsically black, is an operation that is very liable to go septic, and should only be done by experienced and dedicated operators working under laboratory conditions. It is an important part of the training of every adept, for when cosmic forces are invoked, they always come up in pairs, action and reaction being equal and opposite, but he would never dream of evoking the unbalanced or cliphotic aspect by itself, or for its own sake, that being too risky an operation. For practical purposes, when elemental forces are handled, they are dealt with in their sublimated forms, Skemet, the lion-headed fire goddess, for instance, being a preferable form to Kali. These crude forms of force, however, have to be understood by the occultist, or he will have trouble with them. Anyone who makes a serious study of occultism has got to understand these things, and people are not to be branded as black because they study them. In fact, they would be very superficial students if they did not. But anyone who makes a public exhibition or popular exposition of black magic most certainly stands condemned. For it is not necessary that anyone save specialists should be acquainted with these things, and it is better for the general run of mankind to leave them alone. For to dwell upon them tends to put one in touch with them, and unless one takes the precautions that the initiate takes when dealing with them, one is liable to infection. One cannot divide magic into white and black by a clear-cut dividing line. There is what may be described as gray magic, which people embark upon out of ignorance or love of sensation. One must therefore recognize the gray variety, of which there is a great deal more in the world than either the white or the black. But we must also say this of it, that while white is white, it is only a question of a degree for gray to shade into black. There is one acid test which can be applied to every variety of operation. In white magic, the operation is always designed and carried out with due regard to cosmic law. Any operation which takes no account of cosmic law, but goes its own way regardless of what the spiritual principles of the matter may be, can be classified as gray. and any operation which deliberately defies cosmic law can be classified as black. Let us make this clear by examples. Some people, finding the mental diet of modern life deficient in spiritual vitamins, turn to the inspiration of the ancient pagan gods. This is not black magic, provided one recognizes that Aphrodite Anadyomene is one thing and Aphrodite Kutaito is another. It is in fact a very useful corrective medicine for the modern mind. It is one, moreover, that we take in constant small doses without knowing it, because so much of art and poetry draws its inspiration from the classics. This is an operation which narrow-minded persons might call black magic, but no one with any insight into life or knowledge of psychology would consider it so. On the other hand, indiscriminate dabbling in seances, fortune-telling psychism, and such like is classified as gray under our definition, because it takes no account of anything save personal desires, and never asks itself what may be the spiritual quality of what it is doing. No obvious evil being immediately forthcoming, and in fact a plentiful amount of specious piousness being very much in evidence, a form of piousness wherein God is called upon to bless what is being done, but is never asked whether it is according to His will. It is taken for granted that what is afoot is a harmless entertainment, or even actively edifying as tending to raise the mind above materialism, thus reinforcing faith. The after effects are far-reaching, and though they may not necessarily involve moral deterioration in persons of naturally wholesome character, and we must acquit them of that charge so often brought, they do cause a marked deterioration in the quality of the mind, and especially of the capacity for logic and judgment. Any form of promiscuous psychic or supernormal dabbling is definitely undesirable, in my opinion, and unfits the person who indulges in it for serious work.